Well, show her picture now. Here it is.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this special called meeting, budget work session for November the 20th of Beaufort County School Board to order. Given the fact that Dr. Mealy was able to join us, then we will omit item 1.02 and move on to the roll call with Ms. Johnson.
Mrs. Kirby?
Here.
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Daniels?
Here.
Mrs. Harrison?
Here.
Mr. Holbrook?
Here.
Mr. Nelms?
Here.
Dr. Mealy?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Now, do I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion to approve the amended agenda by Mr. Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, I heard three. I have a second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Amended agenda is approved. Moving on to 2.01, discussion of fiscal year 24 budget amendment. Are we just going straight to Mr. Hagler?
Well, I'll tee him up. You all are familiar from previous board meetings. Through the great compromise in Richmond over $3 billion, there was $1 billion reallocated back out to schools and other public services. So our increase in state allotment is, I think, around 4.3 million. Is that correct, Mr. Hagler?
Total is 4.9.
And so of that 4.9, good share of that is the all-in money that we discussed the last several board meetings. But there's also money for an increase for staff members who are in an SOQ funded position. But our recommendation here tonight is a 2% increase for all employees. And we have a path forward able to do that. So Mr. Hagler's already reviewed this information with your Budget and Finance Committee. And so this is not new information to your committee members, but we're asking for your action tonight so that we can make these proposed amendments to our current operating budget over to the Board of Supervisors and ask for their action as well. So, Mr. Hagler.
Yes, good evening. I'll go down the list. It's a one-page document. The second page is really a resolution for the board. If they so choose to amend the budget to pass that resolution, and then I'll forward that to the Board of Supervisors. Because of the amount the Board of Supervisors, they need to advertise and to amend the budget. They have some amendments too coming with some revenue from Richmond, but altogether they have to advertise. So we forward this resolution over to them and they would incorporate that into their meeting. I believe it's December 10th is their meeting. And Dr. Berg and I will be over there for that, for our amended budget to answer any questions on that. I'll work down the list. And the top part of the list is the revenue, and some of that will be explained on the bottom with the expenditures, and I'll tie those together as I work down. Overall, the state funding increased by $4.9 million, $4,922,100. $557,000 of that was for the effective January 1st effective date for a 2% raise for SOQ positions. As you know, we have more than the SOQ positions. We carry more employees than that. And we also have the match of that. The effective impact to our budget is really 1% because it's only for half a year. So the revenue coming in is 557. If you look down on the bottom, the calculation for a 1% change to our budget on those positions would be $794,000. So that's, we're making up the difference on that for the matching funds and for the positions that we carry up and above the SOQ. The 2% will only affect contracted positions. That's the way I did the calculation. It's a mid-year adjustment. A lot of times we'll adjust a lot of the other line items, substitutes, what we pay coaches and stuff. But as it's being a mid-year and it's specifically for SOQ, we just applied it to that. So it would only be contracted positions that would receive the 2% mid-year increase.
Mr. Hagler, can you
Yes,
give
sir.
us some examples of, you said substitutes and what else?
Substitutes, coaches, we have a couple positions that remediation, after-school remediation for kids where it's hourly. We have a couple positions, some school bus aides and maybe crossing guards that are hourly. Might not be needed every day. Yes, sir.
But anyone that's here every day within our buildings or on our buses would be included.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
They're classified employees, yeah. If they're under contract, yes. The ones that aren't contracted, we can't guarantee work every day, or it might be sporadic, and that's where we don't issue contracts.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So that takes a big chunk of what we're getting outside of the all in Virginia, which I'll speak to in a minute. Any questions, any more questions about the salary increase? So the following year, that would be, the state will give us more money because it'll be effective for the whole year. And we'll get some more money for that, and we'll have to make up some money to make it effective for the whole year. So that will be a technical adjustment right off the bat in the following year's budget, because we'll have to put that into place. The all-in per pupil funding, I think we've been sending out memos, and Dr. Woodford's been explaining that. What the state's doing is they're gonna give us all this money this year. It's all gonna come in. Typically, we don't carry over state money. We spend all the state money first, and if we have anything left over, it's local money. This is gonna be an exception to that, where we probably won't spend the entire 3.3 million of the all-in, but it has to be spent in specific buckets prescribed by the state. You can almost look at this as like a grant that's gonna carry over. So the mechanism I'll use, I've talked to the county fiscal person, Ashley Anderson, is that once I know how much money we didn't spend in this year, I will do a supplemental appropriation next year to carry over any remaining state money that's not spent. I have separate revenue codes and expenditure codes for this, so I can track it to the penny. And we have to adhere to the way we wrote it and what we're gonna spend it on. Already given notice that we will do a supplemental, so if there's $1.2 million left over, I'll go to the Board of Supervisors, let's bring that $1.2 million, and that's what we have to spend in the following year. We actually have 3 years, I believe, to spend that. We'll probably spend it all down in 2 years, is what I'm hearing. Might carry some over to that third year, so we'll continue to carry over until all that money's gone, similar to a grant that we use. So that's 3,372,720. I have that on the top as revenue. And it's shown as a one line item down below, but it does affect multiple line items in the budget. I consolidate it to a single line. Because we are spending it in different areas and on different personnel. So I've created probably 30 to 40 budget codes that will track that money on the expenditures. Any questions on the all-in? That's the biggest chunk of this money. And if you look at it from the state level, it's kind of like one-time funding. It's not permanent. So anything that we do with this, people have to know that's not gonna continue indefinitely into the future.
Mr. Hagler?
Yes.
Dr. Woodford, just as a review, it's for tutoring, chronic absenteeism.
And to move the Literacy
Yeah.
Act forward
Okay.
quicker.
Middle school reading specialists.
Right.
There are some contracted positions that we are hiring in this, but those people, when it's in the contract, that'll be stipulated that this is with state money that will go away. So this is not a permanent position long term.
Can I just ask a question about that all in? So it's for tutoring, chronic absenteeism, and,
Accelerating the literacy act.
okay. How does the money solve absenteeism?
Well, so the way we are gonna do it is to hire youth and family support workers to focus on truancy, not to increase our activity in court, but actually to watch, and as families, students are struggling getting to school, go out to the home, do home visits, offer supports ahead of time to help with tracking and getting them into school. A lot of times we just find that parents just need some supports that we just don't know about until we get to the court level. So we'll put a few specialists in, hope to get that down and back in control.
And
It's
it
temporary.
also includes a special emphasis on preschool, because that's where we find they start the habit of not coming to school.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
You know, is
definitely.
this gonna increase as far as transportation costs goes for a vehicle to get the kids to school, like you said?
No, sometimes what we find is that students are out of zone, and so we'll work with them to get them back into the zone so they can catch their bus
Okay.
and not depend on parents. We also write that as part of the plan. Parents who are driving their kids to school and they're not getting there will say, you need to get on the bus. So that's all the kind of work we'll do to really support parents ahead of time.
I have a question on the truancy. So who gets in trouble, the kids or the parents?
It really depends. So for elementary students, charges are pressed against the parent. And then the child is put under what we call a CHINS petition, a child in need of services, basically offering supports. Once the students get to the secondary level, middle school's kind of an iffy. It really depends on what we find out as we're working. Often we'll charge the parent and the student. In high school, once they're older and they can start making some of those decisions, it's really the child. The whole process, though, it really is holding parents accountable most of the time.
Okay.
But we also have some kids who parents are thinking they're getting on the bus, they're working, and so it really depends on the situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Woodford, just to clarify, because I know you've already explained this to us at one time, but the individuals that you guys are gonna hire to fill these slots.
Right.
What are we looking for? What's gonna be their qualifications? Are they
we're
social
looking
workers?
for-
Are they?
That's what we're looking for, someone with a social worker background. We also really wanted to find people who had some connections, if possible, to working with DSS, because
Okay.
that's where our services come from.
Right.
When we're working with the Department of Social Services, they're the ones who get all of that federal funding for supporting families, helping families get counseling if that's what they need. Or so it's kind of a partnership,
Right.
but all of them that we recommended have social worker
Good.
background.
Okay.
Okay. The next two lines, really are, changes in the state funding. These are permanent changes. Barring the state having a pullback or a recession or anything, and in that line. At-risk funding, a slight increase there in the calculation. And something that, all the school districts and everybody have been fighting for years with the state. During the recession, they put a support cap in, which basically said you can run your schools with a fraction of the support, not teachers and aides, but a fraction of the support staff. Clerical, principals, assistant principals, custodians, across the board. And that's how they balanced their budget during the recession. They have never restored that. They kept it level and they never came back. State law says the state's supposed to recognize what is it really, how are schools, what does it really take to run the schools? And so they're just kind of ignoring that it really takes more to do it than we are. This is the first kind of leap where we've gotten some traction because of the increased revenues. So that support cap restoration of $947,000, we already have those employees. We've been doing it all along. We couldn't go down to one custodian at an elementary school. It'd be very difficult. So this is just them recognizing what they did back then and restoring some of that money. So it's not like we have to go out and hire a whole bunch of positions with this. So that's the revenue stream. It should be permanent unless they institute a cap in the future, if their budgets get difficult, but hopefully they don't go back to that mechanism in the future. It really shifted a lot of what the state responsibility was onto the locality during the recession.
So we were carrying those employees
Yes, sir.
anyway. So that 947 is an ad,
Yes.
and so that helps us. So now that, so where's that, I guess you're gonna
I'm gonna
explain
explain
it,
that
that's where
now.
that goes.
So that's the revenue side. So where am I recommending, or are we recommending as executive team, that money be spent? If you recall, some of that money is gonna be used for the match for the 2% that's going in January, the match, and also the SOQ positions we carry above. So we needed some of that money to pay for that. The differential between 794 and a 557. The remaining part of that, we were hopeful to do some other things with that. But as I related to the board in the first quarter, when I presented the first quarter financial report, not only am I concerned a little bit about where the sales tax revenues are coming in, but also on the expenditure side, we were seeing some things that we're probably gonna predict to come in over budget. And so the recommendation is for the differential that's still remaining is to put that towards some budget line items that look like they're gonna come in heavier for the year. I've been monitoring this. I ran another forecast in October. I'm gonna do another one in November, and I'll present to the board in January when I do a mid-year one. But a couple line items where I very, very sure that we're gonna run over on, and probably even heavier than this, but we're trying to pull back on some of that. There were some salaries that came in higher in several areas, special ed, a little bit in guidance. There was some health and dental, more people participating in health and dental than predicted. So I had to adjust on that. So the total adjustments, which includes fringe and salary, was $304,000. I'm recommending to go into various lines to kind of shore up the budget in those areas. Those aren't because we added positions, it's just if we hired somebody in a higher level than somebody that left, or the turnover was higher at a higher level than I was predicting, then you have an increase or a creep on what the expenditure's on. For the board, I work with Dr. Calvert when we're doing the budget. We expect turnover I kind of average that we're gonna bring somebody in with 7 years' experience when we have turnover, instead of 1. But if you have a lot of retirees go out and you bring people in at 20 or 25, it's gonna put some budget strain on there. And that's what we're experiencing a little bit this year on that. Overall, our salaries and fringe are about $85 million of our budget. So a $300,000 adjustment here is not huge. Unexpected, yes, but something we need to do, which is kind of a permanent change. I'll recalculate everything in December and make technical adjustments for next year, but this would help get ahead and also help us bring the budget in for this year. Be happy to answer any questions about that salary adjustment. Okay, the next two are really in the maintenance area. We've seen extreme pressure in the maintenance area. We did go up on our budget last year on utilities for maintenance. Utilities are coming even heavier than what I predicted after even going up on the budget last year, which is, on the electrical side is the main pressure there, so $150,000 there added to the budget for utility increases. That's electrical, water, and gas and fuel. But mainly on the electrical side, I do have the maintenance department looking at building by building and see if there's any anomalies or anything that's running heavier than expected by a square foot basis, and we're addressing anything that we see that cost per square foot on any building that's higher than any other, and taking a look at the expenditures that we have there on the electrical side. So we're actively looking into that, but where we are year to date right now, this is where we are. We need some money on in those utilities. The other side is that we did not go up, even though for the past 2 years, the repair and replace and contracted services where we fix a lot of the things that break. It's had pressure for the last 2 years. I haven't gone up because I know we replaced a lot of the HVAC units and I was hoping that was gonna come down. I think what you're seeing here is just that inflation has come home to roost. And we have not gone up on the repair and replace or contracted services line in the last 2 to 3 years. Probably even further than that. Things are just costing a lot more and things are continuing to break. So I'm making a recommendation to put $300,000 into maintenance in those areas that we see the pressure. For the facility committee, we've talked about this before. If something breaks that's greater than $10,000, it goes against the contingency reserve. We have $500,000 a year for a contingency if things break. If anything's greater than $10,000, like a $30,000 item breaks, we usually take that expenditure to that reserve maintenance fund, not to the operating fund. These are really for the routine, day-to-day, replacing, buying things that we have to do to maintain all of our buildings. So this would stay here next year, because that's what I've been seeing in the past, that we're running a lot heavier in this line. We are getting things fixed, so I think people appreciate that, but we need to maintain them, and I'm just seeing that pressure here. So this would be really a permanent adjustment to the budget from what I'm seeing. I think we were hoping to do some other things with this money, but this really shores up our budget, and hopefully we don't have to go up on these light items next year. And we get these fixed this year. So those are the recommendations by the executive staff on how to spend the state money that we've received. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
What about the increases on the maintenance department as far as, employees?
Employees, we have not gone up. We did not add an FTE into the maintenance department this year. We talked about it during the budget process, but other priorities and other things, so that did not make it in. So hopefully next year we can address that. On trying to come up with an ideal configuration for the maintenance department by zone. How many electricians, plumbers, or HVAC people per zone, so we can take care of the issues there. So I think several board members mentioned that we probably needed to go up, but that didn't make it into the final budget last year. So the FTE count has stayed the same for this year. That might be a recommendation for next year to get that boosted up.
Gotcha.
Mr. Hagler, back in the, adjust maintenance utilities to actual.
Yep.
You said that included electric, water, gas, and fuel, is that correct?
Yes, I didn't go up on, we're so early into the winter. It's hard to predict the fuel. We are gonna go out for bid again. We'll bring that recommendation to the board in December, and we'll bid that out in January and secure a fixed rate for fuel again. It's hard to predict whether I have any kind of exposure there because we haven't started ordering a lot of the fuel to heat our buildings yet. So I did not see any pressure there, but it's too early to determine. It's really on the electrical, I'm seeing most of the pressure.
Okay, so it really doesn't, because like you were saying, I thought we were locked into a price when we did.
We
the
are,
fuel
that
bid.
price is over, I think, late January, beginning of February is when that price ends.
Okay, but we are locked in, so it really shouldn't be any increase with those two.
It shouldn't be unless something happens. I think with the current price, we would be okay, but if the price were to go up $2 or $3 by the time we come to the end of January when our price is ending, then there would be pressure for the rest of the year, because I'd have to buy off the street price from like probably February until the end of the year. I don't see that happening right now, but, world events can change that very quickly. So I don't see any pressure really in transportation on fuel from my predictions, so I didn't make any adjustments on transportation. So I'm hoping that holds true also for the maintenance department.
I was just concerned with gas and fuel going up, at least I thought we were locked in.
I'll have to look at when we present to the board that we want to go out for bid. I'll have some information on what we locked in our price from last year and put that into the agenda item before we go out for bid. And then we'll see what happens when we get into January with some bid prices coming in.
Okay. Anyone else?
If the board likes what we've presented or any other questions, we did type this up as a resolution, so we can present this to the Board of Supervisors as this is an amended budget. And if the board is okay with it, really the last part, be it resolved, and the amounts there would suffice, I think, for the minutes of passing the amended budget.
Thank you, Mr. Hagler. So being no further questions, then we will move on to 3.01, approval of the amended fiscal year 24 budget. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I think we have to read at least
The whole
the be it
thing.
resolved portion.
Be it resolved that Bedford County School Board requests that Bedford County Board of Supervisor adopt and appropriate the FY 23-24 amended Bedford County School Board budget as follows. You want me to read the amounts or just go?
Yes,
Read it.
please.
Okay, alright, operating fund, $121,412,034. Nutrition fund, $5,010,104. Textbook fund, $996,901. Maintenance reserve fund, $6,800,000. Total school funds, $134,219,042.
I have a motion by Mr. Nelms. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Dr. Mealy. Any further discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the amendment is approved. With that being done, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelms. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.